Hey guys, I hope all is well with everyone. I hope everyone still has their power. I hope everyone's doing well. Um, what I want to discuss in this video today is just something we can all talk about and discuss. And you're welcome to leave your ideas in the comment section. But before I get started, I do have to say thank you again. Thank you so very much to those of you who are helping us get through this hard time in our lives and get through this winter season the best way we can. You guys, with your prayers and your financial support, have been amazing. And I cannot say enough good things about your kindness and your love and your support. And just so y'all know, in all transparency, a job was offered, but the job fell through. We have been denied disability 3 times. It's aggravating as you know what, but we are trying, we are doing our best. And for those of you who don't know this, I have a handicapped child. So, yeah, we really, really, really appreciate whatever anybody can do at this time. We are trying and we're doing the best we can. We do know that some of what we're going through was some testing at this time, just like other members of the body of Christ. So if we don't go home soon, we are just trusting Jesus that He's going to turn everything around for us, and we're going to have a Job moment where we get restored and we'll get back on our feet. So y'all keep praying for that as well. Now, having said that, let's get into the video. Like I said, this is just my opinion of what I'm seeing based on what's happening in the world today. I want to talk about Ezekiel 38 and 39. What's happening with the Magog war? Where do I see this going? And what do I think is going to happen? And when do I think this is going to happen? Let's start with the what. What do I think is going to happen? And once again, this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong about this, okay? What I see happening is an attack on Iran. And I do believe, based on the last video I made about the 923 and the 1111 and the Philip Barnett, based on that and based on Ezekiel 38 and 39, and I'll show you that in a minute, I believe that this is going to lead to the peace and safety. I know there's a lot of people out there saying that this is going to cause Russia and all them to attack America. And yes, I do believe that eventually that will happen. But I'm still looking for the peace and safety because I feel like people might be overlooking the peace and safety and going straight for the destruction. But the destruction doesn't come without the peace and safety first. And I think the way that might happen is that we may go into Iran and do a complete regime change. And I think that might happen very quickly and very decisively. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I think. I think this new leader is going to come in and want to make peace. And the reason I say that is because the Muslims have an ideology where they believe that if you make false peace with your enemy, that the enemy will put down their weapon. The enemy will become complacent. And that is the best time for them to strike, is when the enemy becomes complacent. This may be one of those situations where the new leader of Iran doesn't want to strike back too hard and too quickly, because he was actually put into power by the United States. I think this new leader may come in and say, hey, we want peace. We want to work towards this peace with Donald Trump or whatever. Because they want Israel to put their weapons down and become complacent. The whole time, Iran is lying to them. Iran knows that they're going to strike back. They know they want to go after Israel. They know they want to attack America. But they have to get us to put our weapons down and get complacent. This will lead to this peace and safety, I believe. So if you think about the last video I made about the 923 and the 1111, and I showed you how 1111, the 11th month, 11th day on the Jewish calendar, is the end of January of this year, and how this is the week of God's true Hanukkah, and you think about Ezekiel 38 and 39, you will see that Hanukkah is the time frame for the beginning of this World War III, this Magog attack. I showed you the I ams in the Ezekiel, the verses in Ezekiel 38 and 39, excuse me, y'all, how they tell you, I am against thee, O Gog. I am the Lord thy God. So he's giving you the Alpha and the Omega of this war. He's saying, I am against you, but then he tells you how it ends. They will know that I am the Lord. They will know that I am God. And I've shown you in the past how Alpha and Omega is tied to Hanukkah, and how the birth of Jesus is tied to Hanukkah. He was conceived on God's true Hanukkah. He was dedicated the following year at Christmas time after his birth on what the Jews normally celebrate as Hanukkah. So we have this idea of the I am being the first and the last, and we see that again in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And we have the I am tied to Hanukkah through Moses. Think about the pregnancy and the symbolism of the feast days. There is light present in the womb when a woman conceives. And then she goes through 3 trimesters of pregnancy, and then the child is born in a new body, right? Well, think about Moses. He met God at the burning bush. There was a light in the bush. We know the Christmas tree is a counterfeit to the burning bush. Okay? So this light that Moses encounters on the burning bush was at Hanukkah. He goes back to Egypt. There's an Exodus at Passover. And then he goes up the mountain 3 times, representing the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. And we know that has to deal with the 3 Feast of Weeks that are celebrated throughout the summer after Passover. And then at Tabernacles, he came down with a glowing body, which represents the birth of a child or being born again into our new bodies. That's at Tabernacles. We see that all throughout Scripture. We see that on the Mount of Transfiguration with Peter talking about, shall I make 3 tabernacles when Jesus transfigured. And we know that Hanukkah is a pseudo-tabernacles. So here again, we have this whole I am tied into Hanukkah, tied into the 1111 when World War III will begin. All right. However, when people say World War III will start, they have a tendency to think, oh, this is automatic. This is going to happen all at once. That the response to this Iran attack is going to be immediate. And that may not be so. It may start now, and we have this brief moment of peace and safety. Now, here's what I think is going to happen next, okay? The Muslims are secretly planning their revenge on America and Israel. And no one knows that they're going to do this. They have made this false peace with Israel, right? I think what happens next is in Matthew 16 and Matthew 17. And it all ties back to Hanukkah. If you read Matthew chapter 16, this is where Jesus is telling Peter, You are the rock, and upon the rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Okay? But Peter had rebuked Jesus and said, Never, Lord, you will not go to the cross, you will not die. Okay? Now think about the rapture when I say this. He says, Peter tells Jesus, you will not die. And Jesus rebuked Satan and said, Get thee behind me, Satan, because Satan was tempting Jesus not to go to the cross, right? So, at the end of Matthew chapter 16, Jesus is telling Peter, there are some standing here who will not die before they see the kingdom, right? So he's making a reference to the rapture. Some will not die. Go to chapter 17. The very next thing that happens is what? Jesus transfigures. Peter said, Shall I make 3 tabernacles? The 2 witnesses are seen. Think about the rapture and the tribulation when I say this, y'all. He's giving us the timing of some of these events. All right? But here's what I want you to focus on. Right around the same time that Jesus is transfiguring and saying some people will not die, he said, Peter, you are the rock. Why is that important? Because it ties into Ezekiel 38 and 39. Let me show you. Okay, so get this mental picture of the rapture and the tribulation. Jesus said some people will not die. He transfigures. The 2 witnesses show up. Peter's talking about tabernacles. Think about Hanukkah. Think about Ezekiel 38 and 39. What was the next thing that happened in Matthew 17? Jesus told Peter to go get a coin out of the fish's mouth. Now, you have to see the terminology of this that Jesus used. He said, Peter, go let down your hook. I will put a hook in the fish's mouth. Remember, God said, I'll put a hook in the jaw of Magog and bring him down. Jesus is telling Peter to go put a hook in the fish's mouth. So Peter, the rock, is putting a hook in the fish's mouth, and he drew up money out of the sea. Get this picture, y'all. He's drawing money out of the sea. Peter is called the rock. If you look in Job, I forget what chapter it is, y'all. It might be Job 49 or something like that. And you look in Job where he's talking about how God gave him oil from the flint rock. Hold on, let me get that verse. I'm sorry, it's Job 29, not 49. Job 29:6. He's talking about how oil came out of the flint rock. There's only one kind of oil that comes out of the flint rock, y'all. That's crude oil. Okay? Now get this mental picture. Peter the rock, representing Israel, is dropping a hook, pulling a fish out of the sea, getting money. How did people make money out of the sea? It's by finding oil. Crude oil coming out of the rock, coming out of Peter, okay, who represents Israel. So we have this idea of a hook in a jaw, and we have this idea of making money off of crude oil coming out of the rock. I hope y'all are following along with this. We have another opposite perspective on the hook in the jaw when Job is talking about Leviathan and how God came to him and said, hey, are you able to put a hook in Leviathan's mouth? Leviathan is the beast. Who can make war with the beast that we're told in Revelation, right? So we're looking at Ezekiel 38 and 39 talking about a war with a hook in the jaw of a beast that nobody can seem to make war with, right? So we have this idea of the hook in the jaw not only representing the oil coming out, but also the hook in the jaw bringing down Russia, China, Iran, Egypt, Libya. How many ever is coming? Okay? So here's what I think Jesus is pointing to. There's a transfiguration, And then after the transfiguration, where he's turning his body into the rock, and the gates of hell will not prevail, and some standing here will not die till they see the kingdom. And then all of a sudden, you have this idea of oil coming out of Israel. I think that during this peace and safety, this brief, very brief peace and safety, I think Israel might find massive amounts of oil here in the very near future. And here again, this is just my prediction. I think that's going to be the hook in the jaw of Magog. All right. I think they're going to have an evil thought, and they're going to want to come down, and they're going to want to take this oil. And they're going to be secretly plotting behind the scenes to come down and take Israel's oil. And Sheba and Dedan, according to scriptures and Ezekiel, are going to stand back and say, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are y'all doing? I thought we had peace. Did y'all come to take a spoil? What are you doing? You know? And then, if you haven't seen my video on what I think will happen with the nuclear wars, go back and watch those, or that video, before you finish this, so you'll know what I'm talking about here. I have told y'all many times that I think there are 3 different Magog wars. One before the tribulation, one after the tribulation, and one at the end of the millennial reign. Because we have 3 different endings to 3 different wars. And I've also told you that I think there are 3 attacks, 3 different attacks or waves of attack that will come against Israel in the first Magog war at pre-trib. All right? Now, I think that while they are coming down to take this oil, Israel may not have any idea what's going on, or if they find out about it, they may try to attack, or somehow they end up attacking Damascus. And the reason I say that is because if you look at Jeremiah 49, it talks about the destruction of Iran right before it talks about the destruction of Damascus. Excuse me, I meant to say it talks about the destruction of Elam, or Iran, right after the destruction of Damascus, which kind of lends itself to timing here. So while they are planning this secret attack on Israel, I think is when this event may take place with Damascus. And Damascus is inadvertently going to destroy some of the armies of Magog that are coming against Israel. Now, this is where I think it will give the Magog armies the excuse they need to go in and attack America and Israel at that time. And I think this is more towards the spring. But I think once that Damascus destruction takes place, Russia is going to see that as an opportunity to attack America, because it may be some Russian soldiers that get killed in that attack. I think America is going to retaliate against Russia. I think Russia is going to take that opportunity to have the excuse to attack Ukraine because America attacked Russia. And after they attack Ukraine is when I think they will come against Israel in the second wave. And this is when I think that the resurrection will take place of the young babies and the young children. And that massive resurrection is going to trap them in the mountains of Israel. And they're going to die there. Okay? And then this is going to lead to Iran and the Muslim nations wanting to come and attack Israel. They're going to see their opportunity. They're going to betray their peace treaty. They're going to use that as an excuse to come in and attack Israel. But this is when I think the Antichrist, or their Mahdi, will show up. And when he does, the Sunnis and the Shia Muslims are going to start fighting with each other, killing each other over who gets to be the army of the Mahdi or the Antichrist. And that's how I think that third wave of attack will be stopped, because they're going to kill each other. And this Mahdi is going to come in after all this destruction. These little Muslim people are going to be terrified of what they've just witnessed, and they're going to be willing to give Israel peace to build their temple and all that stuff. And that's how I think this is going to go down. Now, why do I say that the full-blown Magog attack or retaliation may not happen till spring? Well, it's because one, the dreams and visions people have had. Two, I'm still looking for some sort of peace and safety, because the sudden destruction doesn't come until after the peace and safety. And three, it's because we need a hook in the jaw's mouth. Excuse me. We need a hook in the jaw to bring them down. I also think it's going to be springtime because the Antichrist doesn't show up until the first seal. And we know the first seal begins at Passover, or more likely second Passover. And I don't see the Muslims attacking each other over being the army of the Antichrist or the Mahdi until he shows up. So basically, to put this in a nutshell, I'm looking for a transfiguration by the end of this week of the bride of Christ, an encounter with God at the burning bush, right? And just like Matthew 16 and 17, where after the transfiguration, the disciples were sent out to heal people, I think we're going to go out and work the fields for 4 months. And I think we're going to be getting ready to bring in the harvest when this war happens in the spring. And also to bring in the harvest when these 3 groups of children or 4 groups of children are gathered throughout the year. Okay? I think that's what we're going to be doing, and I think Israel is going to strike oil sometime in the near future. I think that's going to put the hook in the jaw. It's going to bring the Magog armies after the peace and safety. Well, let me back up. I think this strike on Iran is going to lead to peace and safety about now. And I think Israel will strike oil shortly thereafter. It's going to put a hook in the jaw, give them an evil thought. And Magog's going to want to come against Israel. And sometime around the spring, the destruction of Damascus will give them the excuse they need to attack Israel. I think there will be 3 waves of attack. First, Damascus will kill them, and then the resurrection will kill them in the mountains. And I think the Muslims will kill each other when the Mahdi or the Antichrist shows up in the spring. But guys, I didn't want to make this too long. I just wanted to share my thoughts with you. I hope you will share your thoughts with me in the comment section. And just as a reminder, I do have a second channel called He Is Returning Now. You can go over there. I have a Rapture Timeline and Bible Prophecy playlist where I teach the Rapture Timeline from start to finish and Bible Prophecy intertwined with that. Now, obviously, I can't teach everything I know, but I do teach the basics from start to finish. Some of that stuff has revelation knowledge that some people have never heard before. And you can also leave that channel behind for your family and loved ones. I have a Bible they can read. I have the Rapture playlist that teaches the timeline and Bible prophecy. I also will have a Left Behind letter up there, as well as other videos that can help people during the tribulation. And with that, I'll say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Shalom.